A recent study published by the National Defense University in the US points out that the leadership of the Chinese Communist military has the same fatal weaknesses as the Russian military. This leads to the possibility that if they go to war, they will follow in the footsteps of Russia's disastrous defeat. CNN reported on September 16th that the report's author delved into the backgrounds of more than 300 senior officers in the 5 branches of the Chinese Communist military: the Army, Navy, Air Force, Rocket Force, and Strategic Support Forces over a 6-year period ending in 2021. He discovered that they have no cross-training experience in combat and can only rigidly carry out their missions within their own division. In other words, the Chinese Army can only be the Army, the Navy only the Navy, and the Air Force only the Air Force, in stark contrast to the American military, which has been required by law to conduct cross-training since 1986. The 73-page report says that this lack of cross-training is the Achilles heel of the Chinese military because the leaders of each division don't know how to operate outside of their own domains. The report also says that Russia has suffered on the battlefield because of the same problem. Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the flaws in its military structure have been exposed to the outside world. The report implies that the Chinese military will follow in the footsteps of the Russian army, as this rigidity could reduce the military effectiveness in future confrontations, especially those requiring high levels of joint military operations. The director of Taiwan's National Defense Strategy and Resources Institute said that modern warfare is a joint operation, and officers of the Army, Navy, and Air Force need to understand the professions and combat methods of other services. But this can only be achieved by sending officers from different branches of the military to each other and learning from each other. This report points out one fact. These senior generals of the Chinese Communist Party, the so-called 3-star or 4-star generals, actually lack such ability. So they may end up worse than Russia in a future war in the Taiwan Strait. The Chinese Communist Party's collaborative training is mainly about automated command systems and electronic warfare information warfare, so its collaborative training is not of high quality. CNN quotes analysts as saying that after the recent collapse of the Russian army by the Ukrainian counteroffensive, its ground forces lacked air cover, and that early in the war, the Russian army's logistical problems severely damaged its ability to resupply its troops. Its truck tires were unsuitable for the terrain and were constantly being scrapped due to a lack of maintenance. The report's author says senior communist generals may face similar problems. The report compared the US and Chinese 4-star generals in 2021 and found that all 40 US officers had joint service experience, while only 77% of the 31 Chinese counterparts had such experience. The report also points out another critical difference between the two countries. Nearly all US 4-star commanders have combat experience, while almost half of the 4-star generals on the Chinese side are party officials, so-called political commissaires. For the CCP, I think its biggest weakness is the party's command of the gun, a culture that the US report didn't mention and hasn't really been taken seriously. He saw a phenomena of the political commissaire system, that is, the political commissaire's role in the military. It has a lot of power and is equivalent to a military supervisor. The Chinese Communist Army has 2 systems. One is the military system, and the other is the political system. Political work mainly focuses on the control of people, while military work is about fighting wars. It's true that these 2 things restrict each other and affect the development of combat effectiveness. There is another obvious difference between the 2 countries. 58% of US military officers have served in foreign countries, while none of the Chinese Communist officers have overseas experience. Carl Schuster, former director of the U.S. Pacific Command's Joint Intelligence Center in Hawaii, said, "This new report is the best assessment of where China is now and where it's going. The CCP is about 4 to 5 years behind the U.S. in joint combat capabilities. Recent exercises in the Taiwan Strait have shown that they are trying to catch up, so don't take it lightly."